Hello, welcome to Master Menopause Metabolism with Andrea Tornis. Very excited to share with you today. Really personal part of my journey, and I think it's going to help you understand where you're at in the hormone cycle, what to do, how to make it better, and understand that you're not alone. So tune in. Let's get to the bottom of it. So the moment I was standing in the kitchen was such a big kind of milestone for me. I just realized like, okay, here it is, midnight. I'm not, sleeping because I can't get my thoughts together. I'm feeling so much exhaustion, anxiety, and just almost traumatic about thinking about waking up the next day when I couldn't get to bed, didn't feel good. And it was just such a turning point for me because I realized like how tired I actually was. And I think previous to that, as women, I just tried to kind of talk myself through it. Like I had to work, I had a class to teach in the morning, I had personal training studio to run, I had kids to take care of, and I wasn't admitting to myself how stressed out I was. And the truth of the matter was, I was still doing my workouts and walking through the things I normally did. And as a matter of fact, I was squatting 300 pounds at my max, but I still couldn't function for 3 days out of the month. I actually ran an entire business where I managed, some employees and also had, a service-based business where people were coming to me and talking to me about things on a daily basis, and we were serving them and helping them. So talk about an extroverted thing, and then teaching group classes, Pilates classes, doing sales calls. And for me, I was very extroverted and felt comfortable there, except for these certain days of the month, and I didn't really connect the dots, but it was crazy. And the story doesn't always, tell you why, when you meet a woman or when you are going through this yourself, it's not always the same. And basically, this is interesting because I think we always think the other person has it all together. But the episode is going to be more about the story I don't always tell you guys about because honestly, it was a very trying time for me, and I felt a lot of guilt about not being able to regulate myself because I'd never really went through that before. And so some of the symptoms that I was having was basically social anxiety before my period. So what I mean is, getting done with a Pilates class and talking to people afterwards usually is very fun for me and exciting, but I would feel stressed out and like worry about the things I said, or just kind of have this whole emotion, or my ego was very negative on myself. And I also found myself starting to cancel plans, isolating, when normally I'd love, throughout the week do things, and then I do things with some of my girlfriends on the weekend and just kind of continue and carry on. When I found myself like, I just can't, like if I go and do something with someone on a Friday or Saturday, I have a really hard time getting back to work on Monday. So then I found myself just, no, I'm not going to bother with it. I can't do it. My sleep was also really breaking down. So, like I said, at midnight, I couldn't fall asleep. And a lot of times, even if I did fall asleep, I would wake up at 2 a.m. with very like looping thoughts, really wired, my heart racing, couldn't turn it off, lay there, think, wake up in the morning even with thoughts that were very negative, like wake up feeling a lot of fear, and there was no reason for it, but just wake up kind of dread through my day. I remember telling my therapist, because I was working with a therapist trying to work through these feelings, it just really wasn't me. And I said, yeah, I really can't stand anyone. Like, I just don't like anyone. And, I just thought that's so weird, but that's honestly how I feel. And I think the reason for that is because I just didn't feel good myself, honestly. And so then I would isolate, and make excuses for it and give reasons. And then I was getting all this belly fat, and like that was deeply concerning. Like there's times where I've seen the scale go up, but my body actually looked more tight and toned than it had previous. And that basically is kind of the pattern for years and years, but that doesn't really bother me as long as, I kept my shape, my clothes fit, were fitting better. I could justify like, all right, the scale is, now going up. I'm, okay with that because I look good. But no, it wasn't that. It was I would go to do my planks in class and I would feel this roll, my stomach, my back, and Larry would shoot videos because that was a big part of what we did to, promote the personal training studio I owned. And I looked so different and I was like, what is happening? Like I haven't changed anything. And then these mood swings, like just the crying, the extreme irritability, like one moment just hating on everybody, and then, wanting to just like my whole closet felt completely disorganized and I needed to go through and get it organized and just some really, really different stuff. And I just didn't recognize myself. And I guess what I would describe it as is like, I just don't feel like myself anymore. And there was, there were things outside my life that were stressful. Like, I had, a lot of things, but it was like normally I could tread through them okay, but I found myself not being able to kind of come up to the challenge, and it'd been things that had been gone on for years, but suddenly it felt like unbearable. And so I just really had this whole identity crisis. And, but then you think, well, building a business, I'm quite busy. I have kids, I am married, I'm pretty busy. It's probably just that, right? But I went on probably too long living this way before I started seeking answers. And I'm almost that person who hates asking for help. So that too, and plus everything was really public. So it's like, before I admit that I'm not cracking the code on my own weight loss and I'm not feeling so great, I do want to try to see if it's my discipline or maybe it's something I'm eating different. So I think there was a lot of that thought going. So I probably had it going on for 2 years before I actually asked for help. And here is, what I've learned in this process that I can share with you guys is, what perimenopause actually is. So not knowing anything about it because my cycles were still regular. There wasn't anything other than what I'm describing, which is a whole host of things, but it took me a while for those all to add up and for me to realize that, it starts 10 years before menopause. So 42 is not uncommon to start perimenopause, which means your hormones start kind of shifting at that time. And, you could maybe be seeing a small fade or a slow fade because I think it was like more slowly the social anxiety. Then it was like, oh, I'm getting kind of moody a couple days a week. And it was kind of a joke, like, make sure to tell me when you're going to get your period, and then, the belly fat kind of came later. And so it's not like everything happens all at once, but then pretty soon it was like, okay, there's a lot going on here. And so that is what women typically see is that it's happening for 10 years. So you're not crazy. And the first thing that drops is our calming hormone, which is progesterone. So I love Dr. Jay Teta. If you know him at all, he did like a whole talk with my group once. And it was just so eye-opening because he said, well, if, hormones were twin sisters, our estrogen would be our extroverted sister and our progesterone would be our introverted sister, meaning like she kind of gets everything to calm. She connects to your GABA connection. And this is why anxiety and insomnia follow is because that key, hormone to help us go to sleep is now dropped. And then we actually have still the same amount of estrogen or erratic on a daily basis. So it swings. It's not just declining. So the metabolic and mood chaos it creates is, very real. And so it's kind of like when we talked to a girl today and she just went on HRT and she's noticing like smells and food and things just don't sound as good. And I'm like, you know what? And we both kind of concluded, it's probably the estrogen that you're taking now. Like when you get pregnant, you change. Like you suddenly are craving carbs, you're more tired, you're sleepy, you're moody. All of those things are super real. And that's just from hormones being different, getting your body ready to, create, hold life and make a life, which is a big deal. So why we minimize this is beyond me. But it's the same thing here as like when it swings and, our mood's going to be chaotic, it just basically creates a lot of things. And then we've got testosterone and the missing conversation. So basically there's no, support around our testosterone, which helps us build muscle and gives us libido and helps us have a little bit of drive. So talk about energy dip and feeling quite crazy. Those all really go hand in hand. Why it drops a lot of times is our muscle. We're losing muscle. Our pregnenolone's not really working exactly right. So when the pregnenolone goes, that basically creates DHEA, which then creates testosterone cascade, the supply chain that basically breaks. And so a lot of women I'm looking at, we're seeing this very low testosterone, and then we don't have DHEA either, which is a precursor to a steroid, which is a human growth hormone. So like everything as we age is declining because women are kind of built to create life, right? So it's the decline of our health and our age, but there are ways to biohack it. And that doesn't jive well with our mood. It's not good. And why these labs conventionally, when they take a serum test, will miss it because they'll give you normal ranges, meaning we are normal. We're not going towards disease. So like they will have a very low threshold for something that would be normal that they're not going to treat versus something that's optimal and keeps you like feeling like you were when you're 30, right? Because that's what I want. I definitely don't want to be 30, but I want to feel that way and I want to age that way and I want to keep everything going in a good direction. And so when we look at our med system, they're going to look only at serum levels too, which shows us how much is in the blood, but it doesn't show us what we're doing with those things. So lots of different, things that are breaking down here. Because even when you go to your OB and say, oh, we'll test my hormones, and if they'll actually do it, which is a whole other story, they a lot of times won't. You're going to see things that don't really move you along. It's one piece of the puzzle, but you need more. And so what the Dutch test tells and measures and why it's different is because it's looking at not only serum levels, it doesn't really look at levels at all. It looks at more what is your body doing with those, which to me, I have a lot of women who are already on HRT, but then we look a little deeper and it's like, your body's not really utilizing that progesterone very well, or you're not detoxing correctly with your estrogen, or cortisol is like non-existent. No wonder you're exhausted. So that is the difference with what the Dutch test looks at. And so basically the turning point for me was getting that Dutch test and looking at what was really going on in my body, and that I had terrible adrenal fatigue. And so no diet or no amount, or actually a diet was going to work against my body, make things worse. I also had no progesterone. So that was huge. My testosterone was okay because I lift weights and kind of consistently do that. So that didn't really go away. But what I did then is got on hormone replacement therapy. So I got on a progesterone and an estrogen. I didn't need the testosterone at the time, but I do know it's there if I need it. There's things like DHEA that I've taken too that kind of help drive that testosterone to make sure it's all staying, where it's supposed to. And what I noticed first was my sleep. So within like really a week or two, I was falling asleep a lot faster and I was staying asleep and I wasn't waking up with that kind of dread feeling anymore. So that was kind of the first thing that I noticed. And then what basically followed over the course of like the first month was a little bit rocky, just I think getting used to it, like the sleep got better and stuff, but kind of that moodiness was almost like every day for a little bit. And then we did need to tweak it a little. I did have to increase my progesterone from the first dose that we did. And then I don't change my patch all the time because the estrogen, I don't need it as much. And so that took about a month to get things good. But now I can tell you, my mood started becoming really stable. Like now I don't even notice, when my period is coming. So there's just not like those huge highs and lows anymore. That social anxiety piece went away. My body composition. So now I've really been able to, I had to do reverse diet and kind of eat more. And I do cycles of that all the time to kind of give that homeostasis. And then when I do cut, I do a very light cut, nothing too extreme. I don't do loads of cardio or anything like that. And it basically just, has gotten so much better. So now I kind of stay at like 19%, 18%, really happy there. I don't see these big highs, lows, except if I'm reversing. I know it's going to go up a little bit due to water weight, and maybe I'm getting a couple pounds more muscle during an 8-week, 12-week phase, but then it's going to come right back down. So it's really cool. And then, my sex drive is normal again. Like I actually feel like having sex and think about it and enjoy it. Which is really nice. So that's amazing. And, who I am, like I kind of know who I am now. And it's like, now I'm kind of like, I thought of it as this whole healing thing, but I also just think my hormones were like drastically off and that I was under eating and overly stressed. And so it wasn't making a very good me. And so I really started to feel like me again and not a tired, bigger around the middle version of myself. And the pattern that I see every day is these fit, hard-working women who are hormonally depleted. And I can almost guess, but like we test, we don't guess, but just hearing the symptoms, and women who have been told that they're fine, yet they know they're not, and they're really, really on like a trust issue at this point because they don't trust the news or they don't trust that this thing's going to work for them. Sadly, I've not been able to, show them what the other side could look like. Either they're not ready for that or they're afraid to fail. I don't know, but I just know how powerful our hormones are and how that can drive metabolic health. Like everything's a hormone. And, they're just not feeling it, but they feel like they have done everything. And then that testosterone piece. So I think it's the most common missing piece in women 40 plus. It's the one I see the most often. And if we, overlooked that, none of the things we are going to do would work all that well. But it's not the only thing, but it is one of the biggest things because if they're putting time in the gym and they're eating the protein and yet they're not having the testosterone, it's going to be really hard to move things along. And so this is the difference between what comprehensive testing looks like versus just standard panels, like metabolic panels, like your doctor's going to look for red flags, right? TSH for the thyroid, lipid panels, A1C. Those are all good, but it certainly does not show us the entire picture, like a Dutch test, a GI map, a stool test. And then also like T3, T4, how are things converting? Do you have autoimmune antibodies? that's really what we want to look at, and levels, and what's normal versus what's optimal versus what's normal. Normal just means you're not about to go tip over into some disease, which to me is like, that's not thriving. And then how HRT combined with training your body, the right nutrition and lifestyle changes this outcome. And, but it's also not a magic bullet. So kind of foresee like everything out there is just kind of nuts, because we've got, you know, people who are like, here's the HRT, go take it, okay, they're like, now I'm going to start losing weight. I'm going to start feeling better. But it's like, okay, there's a little bit of time to adapt there. And like, that's going to help some of the things. But if we don't, do testosterone, and we don't work in strength training and proper nutrition, and maybe even some like magnesium or more minerals, and you're not going to thrive and it's not going to work. And so that to me is like one of the saddest things, where women are like, I already got on hormone replacement therapy. Like they're like raising their hands, like, I want to do it. Like they know there's an issue there, but they don't understand how important that lifestyle piece is. So that's what our business does. They want things a la carte. And I'm like, yeah, I want that for you too. But like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to know where your hormone serum levels are at if we don't know what your body's doing with them. Or, like it's in the normal range now, but like, is that optimal, or is your body using it? And what foods are you eating that are contributing maybe to inflammation and more brain fog? So it's just, yeah, like getting the whole picture and really dealing with these things in a manner that moves you forward is, to me, where things need to be going. And so we need to talk to doctors more? Do we need to kind of make this more cohesive? Yes, absolutely, 100%. So the thing I want every woman in your 40s is, this is not aging. This is under treatment. This is not evolving with your body. This is not optimal. And none of us has to live that way. Okay. So if someone has told you that, or you feel like you've done everything, trust me, there's a missing piece and you can find it. It's like a puzzle. Our bodies are miracles. And I really want you to know, the Dutch process in our program looks like this. Like, we find out what day your cycle's on. If you don't have a cycle, or if you have an IUD, we send it out. It comes right to your home. It's a 24-hour test, and it will look at different urine samples, like dried urine samples at different time stamps. And basically you prepare, if you're on hormone replacement therapy, keep taking it, because we want to see what your body's doing. If you are, if you have a load of supplements, like you could back up on those for a day or two, but also it's good to see what your body is doing with them. And then the other piece is avoiding like certain foods and things. You kind of dehydrate a little bit, so it's a more concentrated urine, and avoid caffeine the day of. So it's very simple. It takes a couple weeks to get back, and it's just really cool. So if you would like more, info on how to get started, DM me the word Dutch. And I just want you to remember, you're not falling apart. You're not crazy. You're just under supported, and we don't have enough data, and there's not enough there if this is going on for you. And so just know you can get to the bottom of it and, fix the missing piece. And suddenly it's like a cascade and a ripple effect, just like it kind of went 0 to 60 with my body, it felt like, but it really was like a slow decline. And that's how this works too. It slowly starts like going in the right direction until you're like, damn, I feel really good. And you know how to move with your body. So it is possible for you. All right. Thanks so much.